Hello everyone, my name's Sean Hargreaves and I'm going to go over here, go over some placing ellipses in your space. Um, there's a thing about ellipses. A lot of graphic art students and a lot of designers use the ellipse guides, which are great, but the issue with those ellipse guides is that they're not in true perspective. They're basically ellipses that have been compressed. Um, Let me show you here. Um, so just draw ellipse here. So here's a circle that we'll make into ellipse. And what the ellipse guides basically do is, you go from like an 80-degree ellipse down to 50 and so on. That's all they're doing. They're just compressing the ellipse like this. You go down to 15. But what I want to go over here is something different, which is more of a perspective type of ellipse where we compress it in distance and then you pull out the corners here so that we get a true perspective depending on where we're sitting or where we're standing on a floor, you know. And what happens here is the the distance here is, I got a different brush here. What happens is this distance here is a lot less than this distance here. And in the ellipse guides ellipses, these two distances are equal because of where their peak is on the side. So what I'm going to do is I've got this wall here, and what we'll do is the thing about a lot of illustrations is that especially a lot of concept artists use various cloning techniques, various duplication techniques in Photoshop. And they'll draw one ellipse and then just duplicate it and duplicate it and duplicate it along the floor if you have some kind of circular pattern. The problem with that is that a lot of them don't adjust it as they duplicate it, and even when they do, it's compromised. So you just have to take a little bit more time to plan this stuff out, because there's nothing worse than a great design that's where the perspective or the technical aspects of the design are slightly off, and people look at it and some people can't quite grasp it, but there's something not quite right. So if you just take a little bit of time in the nose end of your illustration, it'll be good technical building blocks for the rest down the line. And you won't be fighting with inaccuracies. So first off, what we need to do is I'm going to break this up into segments, because I'm going to be placing my ellipses on the ground plane here, on the floor plane here, in square sections. So I'll break up the square sections here in perspective. Here I have my vertical and horizontal guides. I'm just going to have my vanishing point right here, which I've already pulled out, projected from the back wall here. So first thing to do is find the center line of this. Of course we can measure it, but I'm just going to do it by hand, manually, so you can see another way of breaking this up, of measuring this. do it on a different layer. So I'm going to find the halfway point here, which is here. Holding the shift key down and pulling the line down. So there's our halfway point. We go to our vanishing point here, pull it across to here. Now the next part is, a lot of it's done, well, it's really done by eye. Once you establish your first section, then you can project to the next sections. So we'll give it a shot here. Because our eye is below the halfway point, so this is going to be a little bit more compressed. So here's our first section, and next thing we do is we do the same thing we did here, which is we're going to find the well, actually no, this is what we do. We take this line here to get the next horizontal line. We want to bisect this intersection here across to here. And that'll give us our next, again holding the shift key down. And then to get this, like that, holding the shift key down and across. So you see you have these three sections here. But as I see this, I think that this is pulling too much here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to redraw this a little bit more compressed here, like this. I'll do this again. I mean, it sometimes takes a few times, you know. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4 sections. And then what you can do is add another layer. We'll change this to black, and we'll go in here and just go over the lines here and knock off the other one, and there we are. So these are our sections, and if you want to, you can bring it around depending on what you have on the walls. So these are our sections projected back in perspective. So now we have the sections that our ellipses are going to be in. So let's just pull out a circle here. I'm just eyeballing where the middle of this is. And then what I'm going to do here is I'll add another layer, new layer, and then use previous layer to create a clipping mask. And what this does is it allows me to, for example, I can draw within this without having to make it a selection. See? So let's find an interesting shape here. Oh, actually, you know what? This is pretty interesting here. Let's see what we can do with that. So let's see how this looks. Just reposition it a bit. So that's pretty good. So then I'll just lower this, merge down. I have my own layer here. I'm going to get rid of this guide, show guides. So now we have our layer. We'll go back into transform. I like to always start with distort, because distort covers a lot of these things. Perspective is only so accurate, you still have to go to distortion. Same thing with scale. It kind of covers a lot of, pretty much all of the stuff. But I wouldn't use distort too much for rotate, but the other stuff, it kind of covers it. So I'll go to the edit, transform, distort. Actually, before I want to do that, I'm going. Let's see. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 sections, which I'll describe here. So we'll duplicate this layer 2 more times. Here you see in the layer stack, we've got it 4 times here. So we'll start with the first one. Again, edit, transform, distort. Bring the top part down. Bring the bottom part up. See little handles right here on the corners. Very important. Place the forward handles on the forward piece. Actually, that's not the forward piece. This is the forward piece. And then the rear handles on the rear corners. So that's your first piece. Then you're on your second piece. Oops. Second one. You don't need your vanishing point for this, because you're just using these other guides like the corners of the walls and your squares in the floor. So there's your second piece. Third piece. People take interior spaces, architecture for granted when they're drawing them. Oh, it's just boxes and things like this, but there's a lot of fundamentals that get lost if you don't think clearly about what you're actually drawing. Perspective can be very, very technical, and we walk around all day, we see correct perspective, and if you draw it incorrectly, even if it's slightly off, it's quite bothersome. So you really need to practice true perspective and take pride in the accuracy of your technical abilities, because you don't want to have a great design or a great illustration rendered, designed beautifully, but the fundamental building blocks of that illustration are off or slightly incorrect. So here you have these in perspective here, and you wouldn't get this with the ellipse guides, because like I said before, this is the center. Right here is, oh gosh, let me get rid of that technical brush. Here is the center of that piece. It's right there. But what the technical brush does, what the ellipse guides do is they make the center of it at the farthest out point, which is about there, but it's not because it's in perspective, you see. So it says back, the center line of this is back. There's more distance here than there. Unlike the ellipse guides, where the distance is exactly the same. And it's a problem if you're trying to use them for accuracy. So keep this in mind. I hope this helped. I see a lot of students kind of banging these things in here, and there's just basic technical issues that I hope that I've helped you with. Um, and the ellipse guides are fantastic. I'm not saying don't use them. They can bail you out in a hurry a lot of times. Just for absolute technical accuracy, you want to really concentrate on what you're trying to achieve, and build this stuff up correctly. Okay, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.